What if I told you that one single day, one speech, could change the course of history forever? That a single man stood before thousands, armed with nothing but words, and shook the foundations of an entire nation. But what if he had failed? Would America still be the same? Would you? It was August 28, 1963. The air in Washington, D.C. was electric. Over 250,000 people had gathered, some in hope, some in fear. And standing at the Lincoln Memorial was a man who, in just a few minutes, would rewrite history. This is the story of the day Martin Luther King Jr. changed the world. But let's rewind for a moment. The civil rights movement was at its boiling point. Racial tensions were suffocating the country. The weight of centuries of oppression had reached a breaking point. People were angry. People were scared. Some were hopeful. But no one knew what was coming next. And neither did Martin Luther King Jr. Because here's the thing, he hadn't even planned to say the words that would define the movement. Can you imagine? The most famous speech in American history almost didn't happen. That's like going to a concert and the main act saying, "Hey, I'll just wing it." But that's exactly what happened. As King stood at the podium, his prepared speech in front of him, he delivered powerful words, no doubt. But something was missing. The crowd was listening, but they weren't feeling it. And then from behind him, gospel legend Mahalia Jackson urged, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." And that's when it happened. King put his prepared speech aside, took a deep breath, and began to speak from the heart. "I have a dream." Those 4 words sent shivers down the spine of America. He painted a picture of a world free of hatred, of a future where children of all races could stand together, of a nation that would finally live up to the promises written in its founding documents. And in that moment, something shifted. Even the most skeptical in the crowd were drawn in. Some cried, some cheered, and some, who had come as doubters, left as believers. But was the battle won? Not yet. Because the next chapter of this story was about to take a much darker turn. King's words echoed across the nation. His speech was broadcasted to millions. It was a moment of unity, of hope, but also of danger. The forces against him were not silent. Hate groups plotted. The FBI labeled him a threat. His life was constantly at risk. Imagine giving an inspirational speech and the government's response is, "Yeah, we should probably keep an eye on this guy." But King knew the risk, and he kept going. Because what came next wasn't just a speech, it was a movement. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, a cultural revolution that reshaped America. None of it would have happened without that day, without those words, without that man. And here's where it gets real. Today, his words are more important than ever. We live in a time where division still exists, where injustice still lingers. But if one man could stand on a stage with nothing but his voice and change the world, what's stopping us? Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just make history. He handed us the blueprint to keep changing it. So the question is, what will we do with it? If this message inspired you, share it. Spread the words that still have the power to move mountains. Because history isn't just something we remember. It's something we